The final round of the offseason rankings, list season, polls are getting put out there to the public now. Feels like everybody is still sleeping on Tennessee. I'll explain. It's a Thursday, Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome into it, your Thursday morning Locked On Vols. I'm your host, Cain. Appreciate you guys for being here. Making Locked On Vols a part of your morning routine, your first listen, your first watch, each and every single day, free and available wherever you get your podcast. And got a fun show coming up and couldn't do without you every dayers. And of course, Locked On Vols is a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every single day. Throwback Thursday with Noah Taylor of Nealon Press Corps coming up in segment number 3, dialing it back to a really good game. A couple of original SEC programs, Tennessee and Georgia Tech from way back when. That's coming up in segment number 3 as we throw it back. Scouting the opponent, we'll take a look at the Kentucky Wildcats for the 2025 edition of the Border Bowl coming up in segment number 2. But a couple of these, final renditions of list seasons, polls, all that type of stuff that I wanted to get caught up on here in segment number 1 is how we're going to begin our show. So, obviously we know that Tennessee was voted number, 24 in the AP and 18 or 19 in the coaches poll, whatever that was. I mean, that's probably about right in the coaches poll, in my opinion. AP 24. I mean, you can't be too mad about it, but that's just kind of where I expected it to be overall. So that came out a couple of weeks ago, obviously. The coaches poll, or the coaches all-SEC preseason team, that was announced a couple of days ago. And again, these are interesting because there are 3 different teams in preseason. I think it's hilarious. I guess it's a good way to get notoriety for programs and players and all that. There's only 2 teams on the postseason teams, but 3 preseason teams, and you're really grasping at straws here on some of these. But Tennessee did have a good showing here. 6 volunteers named to the preseason All-SEC teams per the coaches. Jamal McCoy obviously was the first team. He was actually Tennessee's only first-team recipient, but that comes as no surprise. Tennessee wide receiver Chris Brazzell, offensive lineman Lance Hurd, tight end Miles Kitselman, linebacker Arion Carter, and defensive back Boo Carter all came in on the 3rd team. And no disrespect to these guys. I mean, it's awesome to see Tennessee, showing up on these lists. But a couple of these guys, it's like, oh, well, are you a returning starter? Okay, let's put you down here on 3rd team, because there's not enough players to fill spots when you go 3 deep in these preseason rankings list, if you want to call these all SEC teams, in my opinion. Like Chris Brazzell, hey, Tennessee needs him to step up in a monster way. He's Tennessee's leading receiver, right? But he had only 29 receptions last year. That's hardly enough to be on an all-SEC team, postseason team, rather. Lance Hurd, he was a starter at left tackle for Tennessee, and again, I thought he played much better as the season went along. He was derailed by a July procedure. He was not in shape. He was playing injured a lot, especially the first half of the season. His Pro Football Focus grades, again, take it for what it is, are not pretty whatsoever. But he was named to the 3rd team. Miles Kitselman, I think that's solid. I think Miles Kitselman, Arion Carter, and Boo Carter, no issues there. I mean, in fact, you can make the case for some of those guys, at least for the Carters, that maybe you could be 2nd team, maybe Arion. But nonetheless, Tennessee does get 6 on the 6 overall on the coaches preseason All-SEC team, 5 on the 3rd team, 1 on the 1st team. So that was a little bit of news that came out earlier this week, but also I wanted to look at The Athletic. The Athletic ranked all FBS programs 1 through 136. There are 136 FBS programs in college football this year, and Tennessee comes in at number 26 in that big ranking. So if The Athletic did the top 25, Tennessee would be just outside the top 25 at number 26 overall. This is what The Athletic wrote about Tennessee, short but sweet. While Joey Aguilar replacing Nico Iamaleava behind center is more interesting, don't forget the Vols also replaced running back Dylan Sampson, the SEC's Offensive Player of the Year. End quote. Again, nothing about Tennessee's really talented defense that's coming back. So, again, you can't write a ton on every single team if you're doing 136 of them, but that's all they kind of listed there on Tennessee. Again, having Tennessee come in at number 26. That's okay. I think anywhere from 19 to 25 is about right. So, I would have Tennessee ranked inside the top 25, but nonetheless, 26 is right on that cuff. So, The Athletic ranks Tennessee at number 26. What about the opponents for the University of Tennessee? Well, Georgia comes in at number 5. The Athletic on Georgia said, quote, there are questions at every level of the offense. Is Gunnar Stockton really the guy? But we may be overlooking the dogs. Typically, Georgia always runs the football. Typically, Georgia plays really good on the offensive line. And Georgia's defense under Kirby Smart has always been phenomenal. So Georgia comes in there at number 5 for the Athletic. Alabama comes in at number 9. The Athletic here on Alabama, quote, could Ty Simpson be a better fit for Kalen DeBoer's offense? The Tide have to avoid a repeat of those letdown performances that Nick Saban never had. Those letdown performances obviously being Vanderbilt and Oklahoma from a season ago. It's interesting on Ty Simpson. I think Ty Simpson is a better fit for Kalen DeBoer's offense, for sure. Ryan Grubb coming back to be the offensive coordinator. I think Ty Simpson's a much better fit for that offense and that scheme. Jalen Milroe's obviously a much better athlete, much more dynamic, has a lot more strengths on the ground and some other areas as well. But down the field passing, his accuracy was an issue at times, and I wonder if Ty Simpson can be an improvement on that part of the game. But nonetheless, I'm super intrigued to see what Ty Simpson looks like. I don't know if I'm sold on him yet, obviously. He's just more of an unknown, but I do think that he's a much better fit in Kalen DeBoer's offense. Number 15, Florida. Of course, Tennessee plays Florida in November this year, on November the 22nd. The Athletic on Florida, quote, the DJ Lagway momentum must continue, but let's hope those preseason camp injuries aren't too serious. Yeah, I don't know how healthy DJ Lagway is right now, but mind you, he'll be perfectly healthy whenever Tennessee plays Florida on November the 22nd. Oklahoma comes in at number 25, one spot ahead of the Volunteers, which is interesting, right? They lost a lot. They added a ton from the transfer portal, and obviously everybody and their mother's going to say that they had the better quarterback in this duel, John Mateer to Joey Aguilar. The Athletic on Oklahoma, quote, the two coveted transfers, quarterback John Mateer and running back Jaden Ott, could make for a fascinating new offense in what is a make-or-break year for head coach Brent Venables. It is certainly a make-or-break year for Brent Venables. They just need to stay healthy for sure. I think that's going to be a huge matchup for Tennessee in November the 1st, I believe is when it is. That is got playoff implications written all over it. That's the difference in having 9 or 8 wins, in my opinion, in the regular season. Number 46 is Vanderbilt. The Athletic says this on Vanderbilt, quote, quarterback Diego Pavia won this year of eligibility in the courtroom, a boost to a program that faces an uphill climb but has a good foundation returning. Arkansas, number 47. Tennessee certainly looking for some revenge against the Hogs. Quote, the offense should be in good hands with quarterback Taylon Green and coordinator Bobby Petrino back, but the defense must find a way to replace NFL talent. Syracuse comes in at number 53. The Athletic on the Orange. Quote, the Orange replaced almost everything on the field from last year's 10-win team, and their schedule is brutally tough, starting with Tennessee and Atlanta. That's the thing about Syracuse. I mean, you can say Fran Brown this and Fran Brown that, and I think Fran Brown's a heck of a football coach, but you had a record-breaking quarterback in like his 6th year last year. He's gone. All your production. We did the Scout in the Opponent series, earlier on Syracuse a couple weeks ago. So all that production's gone, both offensively and defensively. So a lot of questions there with Syracuse. Kentucky comes in at number 70. The Athletic, can quarterback Zach Calzada get the Wildcats out of a tailspin? I don't think so. More on Kentucky in segment number 2. Number 90 is Mississippi State. The Athletic, quote, a healthy quarterback Blake Shapen should help, but the Bulldogs might have the toughest schedule in the country, end quote. Number 124 is UAB. The Athletic on UAB, quote, quarterback Jalen Kitna showed more promise, but must cut down on turnovers to find some help. And number 129, which would be the 7th lowest ranked team in FBS, New Mexico State. And I don't think the Athletic even had a thing on New Mexico State. So anyway, those are where the opponents rank for Tennessee. Tennessee coming in there number 26. So 1, 2, 3, 4 of Tennessee's opponents rank ahead of them or higher than them on this list, while 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 opponents rank below. Again, the schedule is very, very favorable. The last thing I want to circle back around to here is as they finish up all these preseason hype lists and polls and all that and more, ESPN put out a sleepers watch, essentially. Players who could break out, sleeper candidates. They listed 43 of them, and the one they listed for Tennessee might be interesting. They list freshman cornerback Ty Redmond. This is what ESPN has to say about Ty Redmond. Quote, Redmond wasn't among the higher-rated quarterbacks in Tennessee's class, isn't even the most notable number 4 on the roster, Mike Matthews. on offense. But Redmond made an impact this spring, joining a secondary that includes standout cornerback Dramon McCoy and others. He was rated as both a cornerback and safety by different recruiting outlets, but probably can play multiple spots in Tennessee's scheme. He's going to play cornerback. He's going to be in the two deep at cornerback, especially to begin this season. So somebody asking the VolQuest Mailbag podcast, like say Boo's not playing star week 1, say Jalen McMurray gets hurt, who plays star? The emergence of Ty Redmond at corner might allow to move Colton Hood over to play star if needed. Again, I think Ty Redmond's going to be a very, very good football player. I think he's worked himself into the two deep. I think he's going to play as a freshman, not just special teams, but a little bit defense. He's been phenomenal. Very long, very athletic. They love what they have in Ty Redmond. But I did think it was interesting that ESPN listed him as the sleeper. Maybe some signs to come for sure. That would be really, really cool. So again, a little bit of a cleanup here in segment number 1. Just kind of wanted to go back and look at some of these end of the offseason or end of preseason polls, lists, rankings, all that and more, because hey, next week it is game week, Tennessee and Syracuse, and we're going to get you set for it, all that and more right here on Locked On Vols. Hey, when we come back, we will scout the opponents. How bad are the Kentucky Wildcats going to be this year? I will tell you when we return right here on Locked On Vols. Guys, you've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis, and maybe you've even tried them, but if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rougiet Ready. Rougiet Ready is the next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that take hours, Rougiet's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast, on average, in 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. Head on over to Rougiet.com/LockedOnCollege and use that promo code LockedOnCollege to get 15% off today. That's Rougiet.com/LockedOnCollege. Use promo code LockedOnCollege for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed by under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit the Rougiet website for full safety information today. All right, guys, here on a Thursday, Locked On Vols. Welcome back into it. We're going to continue our Scouting the Opponent series. Going to really up against it. Going to have to work overtime next week to get it all in before kickoff. But we're going to take a look at the Kentucky Wildcats here today. Kentucky, not a good football team. Typically, Tennessee has absolutely dominated this series. Kentucky gives Tennessee a fight, man. Kentucky plays Tennessee pretty well. I think they played Tennessee close and hard in all but one of Josh Heupel's games here at Tennessee. 2022 Tennessee, I think, just beat the brakes off Kentucky. But outside of that one game, I mean, Kentucky's given Tennessee a lot of issues. It's been tough, hard-nosed football. When Jeremy Pruitt was here, Kentucky had its way with Tennessee, but historically, Tennessee has absolutely dominated this series, and I think Tennessee's going to do it again this year because I don't think Kentucky's very good. You know, I mentioned this on the squad show, and that'll come out later this afternoon, I believe. Mark Stoops, longest tenured coach in the SEC, by the way, entering his 13th season. Like, I understand Kentucky, no matter what Mark Stoops wants to say or Mark Stoops wants to get upset about John Calipari saying it's a basketball school, Kentucky is a basketball school through and through. That's why Mark Stoops still has a job, because the expectations for football are not high. They never have been. So Mark Stoops has done a pretty daggone good job at Kentucky. 8 bowl trips during his tenure, a couple of really, really nice win seasons. There's an escalator in his contract to where he gets a raise every time Kentucky wins 9 games, which is, he's got the best contract in all sports, I'll tell you that. But man, like, he used to have an identity. Stoops is a good defensive coach. They still have good defensive players. Just had a first-round cornerback a season ago, a couple of different draft picks on the defense side of the football. But defense used to be the calling card, used to be phenomenal. It's middle of the pack now in the SEC. Middle to back of the pack now in the SEC. Offensively, it's been abysmal. Kentucky used to hang its hat on good trench play, run the football, okay? Remember Chris Rodriguez a couple of seasons ago, Darius Smoke, a couple other ones as well, that are the guy that went and got drafted, Snell, the guy that went and got drafted by the Steelers. Anyway, Benny Snell, is that his name? Kentucky used to be able to run the football very well, very well. Not the last couple of years. I mean, Kentucky's offense last year was, it was bad. 20.5 points per game. That was dead last in the Southeastern Conference. 330 yards per game. That ranked 15th, only better than Vanderbilt. The offensive line gave up 35 sacks, okay? Third down was horrendous. Nobody in the SEC was worse on third down offensively than Kentucky was, converting third downs on 33% of the time. And red zone trips, only 30 red zone trips all year, only 30. And Kentucky scored only 18 touchdowns in the red zone. So not great. One of 3 SEC teams who failed to gather 4 yards on the ground per carry. So offensively, really, really bad. Defensively, middle of the road, middle to back of the road, I should say. 22.1 points per game. That was 10th in the SEC. Allowed 346 yards per game. That was 10th in the SEC. So not as bad, but not great, certainly. They said goodbye to a couple of different playmakers as well. I mean, Brock Vandegrift, the one-year rental from Georgia, he retired. I believe he medically retired. He's obviously not playing this year. And you had talent, too. Here's another thing. I mean, for 3 years, 2 to 3 years, Kentucky had Barryon Brown and Dane Key at the receiver position. Couldn't make it work with Will Levis. Couldn't make it work with Leary, the guy from NC State. I mean, man, like, you had talent, just couldn't do anything with it. Barryon Brown now off to LSU. Dane Key off to Nebraska. Defensively, you lost a quartet of really talented players. A cornerback, Maxwell Hairston, first rounder to I don't know where, but he's a first rounder. Deion Walker on the defensive line is in the NFL. Edge presence, J.J. Weaver's in the NFL. Leading tackler, Jason Dumas-Johnson is in the NFL. So, had to say goodbye to a number of NFL talent on the defensive side of the football and some skilled players on offense that were never utilized to the best of their abilities. They added a ton via the transfer portal. I'll get to that here in a moment. Here are the key returners. There's not many, right? They returned only 2 starters on the offense side of the football, but that's probably a good thing because the offense was just so bad last year. Wide receiver Jamori Macklin returns as the leading receiver, 4 touchdowns, 313 yards receiving. Do return their leading rusher, Jamarian Wilcox, 2 touchdowns, 590 yards. Defensively, they returned their third leading tackler and second leading tackler. Third leading tackler at linebacker is Alex Afari, 11 TFLs, one of the SEC leaders in that regard, 62 stops. Safety, Jordan Levitt, 3-year starter, second leading tackler, 63 stops, 2 interceptions. Cornerback J.Q. Hardaway started 12 games a season ago. And Ty Bryant has also got starting experience at safety. So the secondary is going to be okay for Kentucky. But, man, they're going to have to fill in some gaps at linebacker and defensive line in the front 7. They go out and they added a ton via the transfer portal. They added 2 linebackers, Cam Olds from Kent State, Sam Green from USC. They added an edge presence from USC and Lorenzo Crown. They added a defensive lineman, a very good one from the FCS level, South Dakota. Very, very good numbers, but again, FCS. McQueese Grace from South Dakota, 9.5 sacks, 18.5 TFLs. Yeah, that'll play. On the offensive end, they added a couple offensive linemen, one from Bowling Green, who was an All-MAC performer, one from New Mexico State. He was a 3-year starter. They added a running back in Dante Dowdle from Nebraska, 614 yards, 12 touchdowns. So he's absolutely going to get a piece of that pie in the backfield. They also added Seth McGowan from New Mexico State, 823 yards and 3 touchdowns. So Kentucky's got some options at running back this year. We'll see if any of them hit. Wide receiver, again, you lost Barryon Brown and Dane Key. You're not going to get any better. They brought in Kedrick Law from Alabama, who had 10 receptions last year. They brought in Troy Scalado from Clemson, who had 25 receptions and a touchdown. Didn't help themselves out on the perimeter. And then the quarterback position. They returned Cutter Boley, I believe. He started some games or played some last year, but they went out and got an SEC veteran who spent time in the ACC, who spent time, or actually didn't spend time in the ACC, spent time at Incarnate Word as well, and put up some great numbers last year, did Zach Calzada. Incarnate Word last year, 3,744 yards, 35 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, 65% completion. That'll play. Cam Ward played there before he went to Miami, if you remember. But he started his career at Texas A&M. He had I wouldn't call it success, but he had some moments at Auburn. So this will be his fourth school, his third SEC school. The veteran, how old is the veteran? The veteran is 25 years old, going to turn 25 in football season, and this is his seventh season of college football. Zach Calzada. Whew. I don't think Kentucky's going to be very good at all. At all. They lost some good NFL talent on defense. Tons of question marks. But again, what's your basis, right? Running the football offensively. You did replenish that. So that's something, but the quarterback play, not very good. So that is a look at the Kentucky Wildcats, the 2025 rendition of the Border Bowl. And, we'll continue this series coming up on tomorrow's show, most likely. Okay, so when we come back, Throwback Thursday with Noah Taylor of Neyland Press Corps. It's coming up next. We dial it back to Tennessee, Georgia Tech way back when. That's coming up next right here on Locked On Vols. If you're running a business, every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time you needed a service. If that person didn't answer, did you wait? Probably not. You probably moved on. That's why you need Open Phone, so you never miss an opportunity to connect with your customers. Open Phone is the #1 business phone system designed to streamline and scale your customer communications. There's an AI agent that handles after-hour calls, answers common questions, and captures leads so that you never miss a customer again. Your whole team can share one number and respond to customers like a shared inbox, so no more who's handling this, who has that, whose responsibility is this. And if you have two phones, personal and work phone, you condense those, get them all in one, make everything concise, simple with one phone, and Open Phone can streamline all that for you. See why over 60,000 businesses trust Open Phone. They're offering Locked On listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/lockedoncollege. That's openphone.com/lockedoncollege. They'll even port over your existing numbers for free. I've got a ton. You probably do as well. Open Phone, no missed calls, no missed customers. So appreciate them as always, and appreciate our friends over at Prize Picks. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the daily fantasy platform that lets you turn your football predictions into real rewards. Preseason's already heating up, and you know college football is right around the corner. Whether you've got your eye on a big-name quarterback or a breakout running back, Prize Picks makes it easier to get in the game. Here's how Prize Picks works. It's simple to play. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you get your picks right, you could cash in and win up to 2,000 times your money back. 2,000 times your money back. That's not bad. I've used Prize Picks for a few seasons, and now I love how simple it is. I can get a lineup in before my coffee finishes brewing in the mornings. Plus, the flex play option is a total game changer. Even when one of your picks misses, you still doubled your money at points and times. Download the PrizePick app today and use promo code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it is where you can run your game. This week on Throwback Thursday with Neyland Press Corps, we are throwing it back to 1956. We'll set the scene right here, Noah. It is number 3 Tennessee at number 2 Georgia Tech in Atlanta. Some funky stuff happened, during the week. Some gamesmanship, if you will, and what ended up being, Tennessee won 6-0, and we'll get to the actual game here in a moment. But you had the AP that said this is one of the greatest, games in college football history. You had the Atlanta Journal-Constitution that said the nation's top attraction. I forgot who it was. This is from your article that said that this game will be talked about for as long as football is being played. Turned into one of those games, but kind of leading up to the game, the hype was real. Both these two teams contending for spots to win the SEC, to try to, national polls, Sugar Bowl, all that and more. This is a big deal leading up to that game.
Yeah, it was. You talk about the rankings and where these teams stood. It's a early November game with national title and SEC implications. Back when Georgia Tech was an SEC rival of Tennessee, both undefeated, both 6-0. And you had the interesting storyline with the coaches. Obviously Bobby Dodd at Georgia Tech had played under General Neyland in the early 1930s. Bowden Wyatt played for Neyland in the late 1930s. And so two Tennessee guys going up against each other. And Neyland was there to watch it. He was there as Tennessee's athletic director at the time. So you had that story going on. You had the rankings. You had the implications, everything like that. Some of the stuff I came across in the News Sentinel and the Atlanta Journal were pretty crazy going into that week. You had one reporter that was asking Bobby Dodd, hey, can I dress up on the sideline in a full Georgia Tech uniform and cover this game from the bench? He obviously said no. I know we talk a lot about on the show about the how different access was back then, but I think even for 1956, that one's pretty out there. So there was a quote of Bobby Dodd that week that said, I about blew my top to getting that question, because I could just picture this guy asking questions to players as they're coming off the field. So,
and again, like, football players have never been bigger, never been faster, never been stronger than now. But I mean, even back in the day, I think you can tell a clear difference in, a tailback and a reporter. Even an offensive lineman that probably weighed, 200 pounds back then?
Yeah.
I mean, there's still pretty much a clear difference between player and reporter.
Oh, yeah, and it'd probably been a disaster if the guy accidentally got thrown out there, too. So he didn't get that access, unfortunately. That probably would have made for a cool story. But even back in Knoxville, they were getting some weird requests. There was the News Sentinel, called her a good-looking blonde, was their quote, showed up at the athletic department that week and said, yeah, I'm Belton Wyatt's cousin, and I need a bunch of tickets for his family to show up to this game. So the story didn't say what happened with that whole thing, but you just had everybody who knew everybody wanted to be at this game in Atlanta. So it was a big deal. And, we talk a lot. I think we throw around the term game of the century. You think Notre Dame, Florida State, 1993, LSU, Alabama in 2011, LSU, Alabama again in 2019. We see that term a lot. And I think this was kind of one of those game of the century type vibes, where you talk about it all week. And it wasn't televised either. So that was a big deal for everybody to be there. And you had pretty much every sports writer in the South crammed into that press box at Grant Field. And they even had fans sitting on top of the press box. They had fans on the field, kind of along the walls, along the fences and everything. So it was a massive deal to see these two former Tennessee players go up against each other with a lot on the line.
Yeah, I'm flashing up a newspaper clipping that you put in your story of the scene from the press box, and I mean, dang, we're packed in there in the press boxes, nowadays as well. But I mean, goodness gracious, there's hardly any room in there. So no TV, an opportunity to obviously see the biggest game, number 2 versus number 3. You opened your story here. This is your story on your Substack earlier this week, saying the newsmen and scribe piled into the press box at Grant Field, Georgia Tech's home field in the heart of Midtown Atlanta, was the epicenter of the Southern football world, November 10th, 1956, and they were there to chronicle it. Really, really cool writing right there, but just a scene setter, just how big of a deal this was. And we get to the game, and again, if you win this game, you're essentially on the right path. You're in the driver's seat to win the SEC. You're in the driver's seat to go and lock up a spot in the Sugar Bowl. You're in the driver's seat to be number 1, right, in the polls. It was a 6-0 victory for Tennessee. You take them for sure, but that means not a whole lot of offense, tons of defense, and what I want to talk to you about is special teams, because I thought it was funny. You had these 2 disciples of General Neyland. Obviously, special teams is one of the maxims, and punting was the story in this one. You had Bobby Gordon that had 3 punts. One was 72-yard down to the 2-yard line for Georgia Tech, backed him up. He averaged 57 yards on those 3 punts. Johnny Majors, who did a little bit of everything, and I know you'll touch on him and kind of his role in this game in a moment, he punted 7 times, one of which was on 3rd down, catching the defense off guard, obviously, and it trickled all the way down to the 1-yard line. So field position was a massive, massive part of this football game, and the defense took over from there.
Yeah, it was huge. I mean, it was. One quote I thought was really good from the News Sentinel. I believe it was Tom Seiler had written that, Tennessee had beaten Bobby Dodd at the game that shaped him, at the kind of game, the kind of approach that had shaped him as a player too. So I thought that was really appropriate. I thought it was appropriate that kicking was such a big deal. And you can see, you see the averages there, the yardage that they got on those punts. It was tough for Georgia Tech to move the ball at all because they spent most of the day in the shadow of their own goalposts. I thought too, with the way the defense played, Tommy Bronson, who I know we'll talk about in a minute, but had an interception late in the game. I think Tennessee came up with 3 takeaways, the one drive. The furthest that Georgia Tech got was inside the Tennessee 20. That was the furthest drive. They got to the 17, and Tennessee forced a fumble down there and recovered. So it was a big deal. Not just the punting, but the fact that Tennessee's defense was able to come up with as many stops as they could and make it a pretty long afternoon for them. But, it's fun. You talk about the 6-0 when we talk about game of the century type stuff. That maybe not in today's terms what you imagine the final score being, but when you read this stuff, man, and go back and there's some clips on YouTube as well if you look them up. You can kind of get the vibe of how big that game was, and just almost the gladiator style of fighting, and really kind of the war approach. Neyland was obviously a general and a West Point guy. You kind of get it, that field position battle as if it was a battlefield. So it's a lot of fun to go back and watch, but just reading it, how big those punts were, and Johnny Majors, kind of calling his own number there and pinning them back. A guy that like you said, did it all.
Yeah, it just cracks me up. You gotta, football enthusiasts appreciate games like this as well. Like last year, whenever, don't get me wrong. Like, do you want to see the explosion back in the Josh Heupel offense through the air? Absolutely, you do. Even on the ground last year, Tennessee ran the football so well on the ground. Not a whole lot of explosive run plays. You want to see this back. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, can't you appreciate and can't you relish a great defense? I mean, come on. I know it's 2025, but good Lord, like Tennessee's defense last year was fantastic, and so many fans are just like, oh, so boring. But like, you appreciate special teams, you appreciate defense, and that's what football was for so much. They had ties. We've talked about that before, back in the day, and so I always get a crack out of people that don't appreciate special teams and don't appreciate defense, and that's what this game was very much built on. You did have the lone offensive highlight, if you will, a little bit of a sequence there. You had a 45-yard pass from Johnny Majors down to Buddy. I forgot his. I can't read my own writing. It's some guy, Buddy Cruz. There we go. Can't read my own writing. And then it was, and then Tennessee was able to kind of rumble in there on the goal line there for the lone score. So 6-0 was the final score, and obviously what happened from this game. Tennessee went on to play in the Sugar Bowl, and obviously what came in the seasons that transpired.
Yeah, so Tennessee won out after that. So that game essentially, almost 40 years before we had an actual SEC championship game. This was kind of the SEC championship game for that year. And Tennessee won out. Georgia Tech, that was their only loss. They went to the Cotton Bowl. Tennessee goes to the Sugar Bowl, obviously. And Johnny Majors, they lost to Baylor, but I think probably the most shocking result of that season was Johnny Majors not winning the Heisman Trophy. Paul Hornung, famously or infamously, depending on how you looked at it, from Notre Dame, won the Heisman after a 2-8 season from the Fighting Irish. That was kind of a shock. I know at Tennessee, a lot of talk is that 97 Heisman race with Charles Woodson and Peyton Manning. But man, there's a history there of Tennessee maybe getting snubbed at the Heisman ceremony, and that situation was one of them. And I thought was interesting about Johnny Majors in this game in particular was the guy you didn't get all of what you usually see out of Johnny Majors. He's an All-American back. He did a lot of damage on the ground. Bowden Wyatt had to kind of adjust the game plan because he was kind of beaten up and bruised going in this game. So he didn't get to run the ball a whole lot. He had to throw it. And you talked about that touchdown drive. He did all that with his arm. Hit a 45-yard pass to Cruz, again, to set up the Tommy Bronson run. And obviously what he did punting the ball too. So that was a great quote in there of Bobby Dodd saying, he's one of the greats. And to say that about a guy who was still in college, I mean, he's a college football Hall of Famer, obviously, now. So I think that told a lot about what Johnny Majors meant to that Tennessee program as a player.
Reporters rushed General Neyland, who was watching from the sideline. Of course, he was the athletic director for Tennessee at that time, and he said, I have no statement about the ballgame except this one right here. I'm the athletic director. Wyatt is the coach, and I think you should talk to him, but I have this to say about him. Wyatt has done a great job, and he's one of the greatest coaches in the country. In fact, I'll go better than that and say he is probably the greatest coach in the country today, end quote. Awesome stuff there from Noah Taylor on Neyland Press Corps. Substack story that came out earlier this week on Monday. And coming up on Monday, you got a great story coming up. It's Tennessee and Syracuse getting ready for the season opener. They haven't played too many times, but the first time they did play was a monumental game. You're going to write about that on Monday, and we'll talk about it next Thursday.
Yeah, I'm excited about that one. And like I told you before the show, I got this prop. This is the helmet that tended not, well, it's a replica. It's not the real thing, but it's what it would have looked like. This was the original Power Tee,
nice,
introduced by Doug Dickey in 1964, and Tennessee wore these helmets through the 66 season. In fact, the last game that Tennessee wore these was the 1966 Gator Bowl against Syracuse. So,
and the last time you wore it was at Halloween last year, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, if I could fit it on my big head, I'd wear this. I'd wear it on the show if I could. But Yeah, a cool story. There's going to be a lot of cool stuff in it. Talked to Dewey Warren a couple weeks ago about it, and there's some legendary players that went on to be NFL Hall of Famers that played in this game. A legendary goal line stand from Tennessee's defense, and then a trick play that two guys, Dewey Warren and Austin Denny, kind of decided to run on their own without telling anybody else. So I won't get too much into it, but it's going to be a fun story about the first time Tennessee and Syracuse played, and I'm looking forward to everybody reading it, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah. And you can read it by checking it out on Monday. Noah Taylor. Subscribe to the Substack. That is Nealon Press Corps. Does a fantastic job. Stories like that. And, of course, we just kind of scrape the tip of the iceberg here on Throwback Thursday right here every single Thursday on Locked On Vols. Fun show. Appreciate you guys for being here. Making Locked On Vols a part of your morning routine, your first listen, your first watch each and every single day. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Good stuff there from Noah Taylor. We'll take a look at that Syracuse game, the first time Tennessee and Syracuse met on the gridiron next Thursday ahead of, Tennessee and Syracuse to kick off the 2025 season. That's what you have to look forward to coming up next week. Man, game week's going to be so much fun. We'll continue the last Friday, or the next to last Friday before college football, Tennessee returns. And we'll break it all down for you right here on Locked On Vols. Tell your friends, tell your family members. This is the show for them. No better place to get caught up on the news of the day and be entertained a little bit than right here on Locked On Vols. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you again tomorrow on a Friday morning. This is Locked On Vols.